class. Today is lecture number 22 and we are going to discuss chapter number 12, that is segment reporting, decentralization and balanced scorecard. First of all, we will discuss about decentralization. What is decentralization? Decentralization can be divided as defined as distribution of decision making power to all level of management. The topmost benefit of this step in an organization is that with this step the managers can view over major issues instead of going day to day problems. So in easy words, decentralization is the distribution of authority and power to the subordinates. There are some advantages and disadvantages of decentralization. The benefit is that by delegating day to day problem solving to the low level managers, top managers can view the bigger issues such as overall strategy. Empowering lower level managers to make decisions put the decision making authority in the hands of those who tend to have most detailed and up to date information about day to day operations. The third benefit of decentralization is that by eliminating the layer of decision making and approvals, organizations can respond more quickly to customers and changes in the operating environment. These are the three benefits. Now, what are the disadvantages? If we discuss the disadvantages of decentralization, the first disadvantage is that lower level managers may make decisions without fully understanding the big picture because they are not fully skilled persons. The second disadvantage of decentralization is if the lower level managers make their own decisions, they lack coordination. The third disadvantage of decentralization is that they have many objectives that can clash with other objectives of the organization. Like if the manager is interested to fulfill the problem of his close person or relative, so he will ignore the goal of the organization for the sake of his relative benefit. Then comes the concept of cost, profit, and investment centers. As you all know, if we delegate our powers to the low level managers, they will impact the cost, profit, and investment as well. So, the first concept is cost center. What is cost center? Cost center can be defined as control over cost but not over the revenue or the use of investment funds. In cost centers, we will only focus on the costs: input costs, production costs, raw material, and selling costs. Our focus is on these type of costs instead of revenue or the use of investment funds. Then comes profit center. In profit center, the manager has the control over both cost and revenue, but not over the investment of funds. So it means in profit center, the manager controls costs and revenues, but not investments. When the concept of investment center comes, in this type of controlling, the manager control all types of areas. He will control cost, he will control revenues, he will control the investments, because investment is the major portion in which we invest on operating assets, because by using the operating assets we will be able to generate revenues, we will able to insert cost on our operating assets to produce or to manufacture our products. Then comes the concept of decentralization and segment reporting. It is important to note that effective centralization requires segment reporting. Because when we are dealing with portfolio, then we need segmenting reports of individual units. So we call that individual unit as segment. We can define a segment as a part or activity of an organization about which managers would like cost, revenue or profit data. It means every individual segment will deal with cost center, profit center and investment center. So company operates in company's operations can be segmented by cost center, profit center and investment center. Like if we say in profit center, the production manager will be there to report. In cost center, our chief finance officer and CEOs are involved. There is confusion that in investment center, I said in cost center, the individuals are. Let me clear myself that in cost center there will be a warehouse manager, there will be a distribution manager, there will be a warehouse manager, there will be a plant manager in cost center, because these type of managers will give us the report about input, production and selling cost. I am repeating, for input cost there will be a plant manager, for production cost there will be a warehouse manager, for selling cost there will be a distribution manager. In profit centers there will be product managers are there. In investment centers there will be CEO, financial officer and chief financial officers will report about the segment of investment center. Every segment make its report like income statement, balance sheet, and they will further report to the company's top management. If we say how the sales and contribution margin for a segment will be calculated, when we will deduct variable expenses from our sales, we will get contribution margin. This you all know already, because after contribution margin there comes the concept of fixed expenses. For fixed expenses there are two types of costs. First is traceable fixed cost, and second is common fixed cost. We can say a traceable fixed cost of a segment is a fixed cost that is incurred because of existence of the segment. If the segment had never existed, for example, if we say that company have no segment, then the fixed cost would not have been incurred. If you understand this concept, traceable fixed cost is the part of segmented organization in which there are many segmented individual companies of the organization, individual units are there. So we will use traceable fixed cost concept. For a common fixed cost concept, there will be only an organization, not its segments. When we will talk about segmented organization, we will use the concept of traceable fixed cost because every segment has its own fixed cost. When we will talk about common fixed cost concept, there will be only organization, there will be no segments of the organization are there. It is important to note that we can make or convert a traceable cost into the common fixed cost. How it can happen? When we will add the fixed cost of segment 1 with the fixed cost of segment 2 and vice versa, the sum of these segments fixed cost will give us common fixed cost. So if we make all these segment or convert all these segment into a single unit or single in one segment, then it will become our common fixed cost. I hope you understood. I am repeating that in a traceable fixed cost, the organization have many segmented parts or segmented units. But in common fixed cost, there is only an organization, there are no segments of it. If we want to convert a traceable fixed cost into a common fixed cost, we will add the fixed cost of all segments and the result will be called common fixed cost. To glamorate it in more better way, if I say that contribution margin is equal to 1,20,000, traceable fixed cost is equal to 70,000. After deducting this, we will get 50,000 product line segment margin. If we will deduct common fixed expenses from it or fixed cost from it, like it's 10,000, then we will get 40,000 as divisional segment margin. So traceable fixed cost and common fixed cost both are deducted from the contribution margin and we will get the divisional segment margin, that is 40,000. remember class that when we will deduct the traceable fixed cost from the contribution margin, it will be called segment margin. So we can say segment margin is the difference of contribution margin and traceable fixed cost. Then comes the concept of evaluation of investment center, performance by using return on investment. If you remember the financial ratios, in that there was the formula of return on investment, that is constituted of net operating income and average operating assets. If we want to evaluate the performance of investment center, we will take the ratio of net operating income and average operating assets. To define net operating income, we can say, in easy words, net operating income is the income that is before interest and taxes, and sometimes referred to as EBIT, if you remember, that our net operating income is EBIT income. In the same way, what are our operating assets? Operating assets include cash, account receivable, inventory, and plant and equipment. So, operating assets constitute of cash, account receivable, inventory, and plant and equipment. To understand the concept of return on investment, is the concept of margin and turnover, because the return on investment is the combination of margin into turnover. Margin is equal to net operating income to sales, and turnover is the ratio of sales to average operating income, average operating assets. If I glamorate it, net operating income divided by sales, sales into average operating assets, sales will be deducted with sales, and our return on investment formula will be net operating income and average operating assets. So we can say return on investment is the combination of margin and turnover. After it, the concept of residual income will come. For the residual income, we will deduct net operating income with average operating assets with minimum required rate of return. We will get our residual income by deducting this rate amount from net operating income. After understanding the residual income, the concept of economic value added term is there. Economic value added term is the adoption of residual income that has been adopted by many companies. Under this head, companies often modify their accounting principles in various ways. Like if we say if the company is spending some amount on research and development, we will treat as investment. We will not treat this type of expense as expense. In economic value added had we can say research and development that is done by the company researchers and the company is paying amount for this, we will say it investment. We will not say that research and development amount will be treated as expense. It is our economic value added cost that our research and development amount that we are spending on that is our investment. We will not say it as an expense. If we take the example of residual income, how we will calculate the residual income? If we suppose that our net operating income is 1,20,000 and our operating assets worth is 1 million. Our operating asset worth is 1 million and our minimum required rate of return is 10%. Remember, it will be given to you everywhere. 1,20,000 minus 1 million, 10% is 1 lakh. So our residual income will be 20,000. This is the practical numerical to calculate the residual income. Net operating income will be given. Average operating assets worth will be given. Required rate will also be given. You need to calculate the residual income. Then comes the concept of balance scorecard. Balance scorecard consists of integrated set of performance measures that are derived from and support the company's strategy. As you all know, to measure the performance of any person who has been given training, he will be assessed in many ways. We take his pre-test about his skills, we will give him training, and we will do a post test to know whether he learned the training or whether he is able to learn the skills, whether he is able to perform the relevant task. So, to explain the concept of balance scorecard, let me show you some type of scorecard that some organization used, in which each and everything mentioned. Here is a look. With respect to customer perspective, if we need to measure our performance, we set some question heads like customer satisfaction, number of customer complaints, market share, product return as percentage of sales. So if we set these criteria to measure our performances, our desired change will be count as, if the customer is satisfied we will mark plus, if the customer complaints we didn't get, it will mark as negative. In the same way, if we want to measure the internal business processes, we also set some heads, and for those heads we will set plus or minus criteria. That's percentage of sale from new product, yes, it's a plus, we got plus sales. Time to introduce new product to market, minus, it means the organization is well reputed that it doesn't need time to introduce new product. In the same way, if we are dealing with our employees, there is a learning and growth perspective. For that, there are some performance measure heads. In the same way, their desired change will be measured with positive or negative way. These are the balanced scorecard shape. We can calculate it with the impacts. Another way is the grading. Like if we are fully satisfied, we will mark 10 marks. As you all know about the marking scale, we will give marks by setting the standards that how much marks will be given to which head. So balance score, what is the aim of balance scorecard? The aim of balance scorecard is to support company strategy, whether its goals are achieved or not, whether the customers are satisfied with the organization. So what are the advantages of balance scorecard? The main benefit of balance scorecard is that we are able to get timely feedback, and we are able to do corrective actions and do a positive actions to respond to our customer to measure to improve our performance. Balance scorecard help us to improve our performance, to tell us in which area we are weak, in which area we need to improve our skills. Then comes the concept of transfer price. Like it is the price charged when one segment of company provide goods or services to another segment of same company. Like if the cost of one segment, we will count the cost, we will not set profit amount in it. The price will be wholly consist of cost of production or the cost incurred to get that good or service. It will definitely impact the performance of organization because no profit is charged to transfer goods or services. In transfer price concept, there is concept of sub optimization. Sub optimization. What is sub optimization? Sub optimization occur when managers do not act in the best interest of overall company or even in the best interest of their own division. It is that stage in which the segment is not performing up to the mark. Okay, when managers are unable to attain or achieve goals that will be beneficial for the organization. Then comes the concept of negotiated transfer price. Negotiated transfer price contains profit, in which segment gain profit in transferring goods and services from other segment. of same company. What will be the benefit of this? In this, the profit of one segment increase and the profit margin of other segment decrease. But in normal, both segments negotiation, the benefit will be finally for organization. Whether this segment is gaining profit or whether this segment is gaining profit, the whole benefit will be of organization. There are some formulas to explain this, glamorate this, like with seller's perspective. We will deal transfer price as variable cost per unit plus total contribution margin on lost sales. What is the meaning of lost sales? Because the unit is transferred within the organization and no sale occur. Divide by number of units transferred. By purchaser perspective, it means this is one segment who is giving its goods or service to the other segment. The transfer price will be greater than these two margins. But with purchaser perspective, the transfer price will be less than cost of buying from outside supplier. It shows that the purchaser is still getting benefit in the transfer price. So if I conclude these two concepts by negotiated transfer price, the whole benefit will be for the organization. Yes, it's true that one segment is getting less profit and other is gaining more profit, and this is their benefit. That instead of if the segment is dealing as a purchaser, he will be in benefit side because the cost of buying is still less than outside supplier. So there are some other benefits. There is no outside supplier involved in this type of negotiated transfer price, and negotiated transfer price will give benefit to the organization. The transfer will be done at the selling price, and there will be more beneficial impact for one segment if there is transfer the transfer is occurring on market price, like the product or the price of good or services in the market is 50 rupees and the segment is giving the transfer price of 40, then it is still beneficial. On base of market price, the segment is still gaining benefit. Both segments are gaining benefit and that benefit is going to organization. So this was all about today's lecture. We will inshallah we will discuss the questions inshallah with our next In our next lecture, we will discuss about numerical questions. Thank you.